Story 1. I started working the night shift at Sal's 24-hour barbershop on Bleecker. Have you ever looked into a mirror and felt that something on the other side was watching you back? What if, this time, it decided to cross over? The smell of dust and old wood clung to the air, as if the place had been sealed for decades. The ceiling lamps swayed slightly, creaking on their hooks, though there was no wind at all. I was alone in the antique shop, or at least that's what I wanted to believe. Between worn furniture and stopped clocks stood a row of mirrors leaning against the back wall. None of them reflected quite the way they should. The images seemed delayed, as if the reflection took a second to catch up to my movements. I ran a hand over my face and saw my reflection smile a moment later. I stepped closer to the largest one, a gold frame carved with leaves and flowers. In the reflection behind me, a shadow moved. I spun around quickly, but nothing was there. When I looked back, the shadow was closer, clear enough now to reveal a felt hat and a smile that wasn't mine. My heart pounded. I took a step back, but the reflection didn't follow. It stayed still, smiling while I retreated. Then, slowly, it raised a hand and pointed to something outside the mirror's frame. I didn't want to look, but I did. In the mirror beside it, a woman in a red cape stood motionless, her eyes locked on me. She wasn't in the shop. She couldn't be. But in the glass, she was breathing, and the fog of it smeared the surface. I tried to convince myself it was a trick of the light, a game my tired mind was playing. But then, in the third mirror, I saw something that froze me, myself, but with my head tilted slightly, as if watching from an angle my real body wasn't making. The reflection blinked, not a normal blink, but slow, deliberate, as if it wanted me to notice. And then all the reflections in all three mirrors smiled at the same time. That wasn't coincidence. A metallic sound rang out behind me. I turned and saw an old pair of scissors on the counter, rocking on its own. It fell to the floor with a dull clang, but in the reflection it didn't fall. It was being held. The blades opened and closed, catching the shop's dim light. In the glass, a pale hand gripped the handle and slowly began to push it outward. There was no shattering, no breaking, just the scissors sliding through as if the glass were liquid. The sound of metal cutting through air made me stumble back, knocking over a broom. The hand released the scissors, which clattered onto the real floor, but I didn't move to grab them. My reflection was gone now. In its place stood the man in the hat, smiling, his eyes fixed on me. The woman in the red cape pressed her palms against the glass, her fingers beginning to sink through. The man tilted his head, his smile stretching wider than it should be possible. I could hear them breathing now, slow, wet breaths that didn't match my own. The air grew heavy, the shop smaller. Somewhere in the back, a hair dryer clicked off, plunging everything into a suffocating silence. The first hand gripped the frame, nails scraping the wood. The scissors lay on the floor, but I didn't dare touch them. The man in the hat mouthed something I couldn't hear, but I understood. "Let us in." The woman's face was halfway through, her eyes rolling upward in some twisted pleasure. The lights flickered once, twice, and went out. In the darkness, I heard slow, deliberate footsteps on the floorboards. The mirrors no longer glowed. They were just empty frames now, swallowing what little light remained. I fumbled for the lock, but my fingers met only cold glass where the door should have been. And in that final, breathless moment before something touched my shoulder, I realized the truth. There had never been a way out. Story 2. The 24-hour barbershop beneath my apartment building on Capitol Hill in, what if the face in the mirror wasn't yours anymore, and something else was standing right behind you? It started with a flicker in the bathroom mirror, just a fraction of a second where my reflection didn't quite match my movement. I laughed it off at first, blaming the bad lighting or my tired eyes. But the next morning it happened again. This time, my reflection smiled a split second after I did. By the third day, I was avoiding mirrors altogether. I brushed my teeth staring at the sink, shaved by touch alone. But reflections have a way of finding you. In windows, in the dark gloss of a phone screen, even in the black surface of my coffee. and every time the delay grew longer. One night, I caught it moving when I was perfectly still. My reflection tilted its head, studying me with a curiosity that felt predatory. I stumbled back, knocking over a glass. When I looked again, it was normal, or pretending to be. I told myself I was imagining things, that stress was making me see patterns where there were none. But deep down, I knew something was wrong. My reflection wasn't just mimicking me anymore. It was watching. Then came the first sound, a faint tapping like fingernails on glass, whenever I stood near the mirror. I pressed my ear to it once, and I swear I heard breathing on the other side. Slow. Patient. That night, I dreamed I was standing in front of the mirror, but the glass was gone. My reflection stepped forward, smiling wider than my face could stretch. I woke up gasping, my hands pressed against cold glass. The next morning, the tapping was louder. I covered the mirror with a sheet, but it didn't help. Every reflective surface in my apartment began to hum softly, like they were all connected, like they were all doors. I didn't sleep that night. Every creak in the building made me flinch. By morning, my eyes were bloodshot, my head pounding, and yet, when I finally looked in the mirror, the face staring back was perfect. Symmetrical in a way human faces aren't supposed to be. My skin tone was even, my teeth whiter. It was like waking up inside a counterfeit version of myself. I touched my cheek and felt a jolt of panic, not because it felt wrong, but because it felt right. Too right. I grabbed my phone and took a photo, then another, from every angle. They all matched the mirror. I sent one to my mom with no context. She replied instantly, handsome as ever. That's when I noticed something in the background of the photo, a faint, blurred figure standing just behind my shoulder. Tall, shaved head. I was alone in my apartment when I took it. I spun around so fast I nearly dropped the phone, but the apartment was empty. My pulse was hammering in my ears, and for a moment I thought I could hear breathing, slow, deliberate, coming from somewhere just out of sight. I backed into the kitchen, every muscle tight, scanning the corners, the hallway, the shadows under the table. Nothing moved. Yet the air felt charged, as if someone had just stepped out of the room a second before I turned. That was 3 days ago. Since then, every reflective surface shows me the same flawless face, and that same blurred figure always closer than before. I've stopped taking photos, stopped looking in mirrors, but it doesn't matter. I can feel him now, standing just behind me as I write this. If you're reading these words, check your reflection. If you see him too, it's already too late. Story 3. Working as an Uber driver in downtown Portland, I picked up a fare outside. Have you ever looked in your rearview mirror and seen something that shouldn't be there? What if the reflection showed a place, and a person, that no longer exist? I've been driving Uber in Portland for almost 5 years, and I've seen it all. Drunk bachelorette parties, guys trying to vape in the back seat, even a dude who brought a live chicken into my car. So when I pulled up outside Jimmy's all-night cuts on Burnside at 2:47 a.m., I wasn't expecting anything more than another weird Portland moment. The guy waiting there looked painfully normal. Suit, tie, carry-on bag. Said he was heading to PDX for an early flight. I figured easy money. We'd barely cleared the first intersection when I glanced in the rearview mirror. That's when I saw it, not him sitting in my back seat, but him, still in the barber's chair. Same suit, same tie, same dead serious expression. And behind him, the barber's scissors snipping in perfect rhythm with my windshield wipers. I actually laughed out loud, figured it was just some weird reflection from the shop window we'd passed. Except, we were already 6 blocks away. I told myself it was just my brain playing tricks. Maybe I'd caught a glimpse of some ad on the glass, or maybe I was more tired than I thought. But every time the wipers swished across the windshield, I could hear the faint metallic snip in perfect sync. Not loud. Not even close to the volume it should have been if it were real. Just there. Like it was happening inside my head. I kept my eyes on the road, but my grip on the steering wheel tightened until my knuckles ached. The guy in the back didn't say much. Just stared out the window, his reflection in the glass looking wrong. Not distorted, exactly more like it was a half second out of sync with his actual movements. I caught it when he blinked. In the mirror, the blink came after. My stomach did this slow, cold roll, but I forced a laugh under my breath. "Long night," I muttered, hoping he didn't hear. The wipers kept moving. Snip, snip, snip. By the time we hit the Morrison Bridge, I couldn't ignore it anymore. The mirror still showed him in that damn chair, the barber's hands moving in slow, deliberate arcs. Only now there was hair on the floor, dark strands piling up in the reflection, even though the guy behind me looked exactly the same. My mouth went dry. I adjusted the mirror, thinking maybe I'd catch the real reflection again, but it didn't matter where I angled it. The scene in the glass didn't change. I tried to make small talk just to break the tension in my own head. Asked him about his flight, the weather, whatever. He answered politely, but his voice had this flatness to it, like he was reading from a script. No inflection, no warmth. And every time he spoke, the barber in the mirror would pause mid-snip, as if listening. Then, when the passenger stopped talking, the scissors would start again, perfectly in time with the wipers. Snip, swish, snip, swish. We were halfway across the river when the smell hit me, faint at first like talcum powder and something metallic underneath. It didn't belong in a car, not on a damp Portland night. I glanced in the mirror again. The barber was sweeping the hair into a neat pile with a small, worn broom. My passenger's reflection still sat in the chair, but now his eyes were closed, his head tilted slightly forward, as if he'd fallen asleep. In the back seat, though, he was staring straight ahead, unblinking. I gripped the wheel tighter. The bridge lights flickered across the windshield, each flash making the mirror scene stutter like an old film reel. For a split second, I thought I saw the barber's face, pale, gaunt, with eyes too deep set to catch the light. Then it was gone, replaced by the back of his head again. My passenger shifted in his seat, the leather creaking, but in the mirror, the man in the chair didn't move at all. The road curved, and for a moment the bridge's guardrail blocked my view of the river. That's when I noticed it. In the mirror, the barber had stopped sweeping. He was standing perfectly still, his head tilted toward me, though I couldn't see his eyes. My passenger's reflection, however, was no longer in the chair. The seat was empty. My heart thudded so hard I could hear it in my ears. I flicked my gaze to the back seat. He was still there, hands folded neatly in his lap, staring ahead. I told myself it was just a trick of the light, a smear on the glass, anything but what it looked like. But then the barber stepped forward in the mirror, closer than before, his pale hands resting on the back of the empty chair. The scissors dangled loosely from his fingers, glinting in the dim light. I could feel my palms sweating against the steering wheel, the air in the car suddenly thick, as if the heater had been cranked up without me touching it. We rolled off the bridge, the city lights blurring in the drizzle, when the rear view went black for a heartbeat. Not dim, not shadowed, but utterly black, as if someone had draped a cloth over it from the inside. My stomach lurched. When the image returned, the barber was gone. The chair was empty. And standing where the chair had been was my passenger's reflection. Only, it wasn't him. The suit was the same, but the face was pale and hollow, the eyes two dark pits that seemed to drink in the light. I slammed the mirror upward so it faced the roof, my pulse hammering in my throat. In the back seat, he finally turned his head toward me, slow and deliberate, a faint smile curling at the corners of his mouth. "Almost there," he said, his voice softer now, almost pleased. I didn't dare look back again. I just drove, counting the seconds until I could pull over, unlock the doors, and let whatever he was step out into the night, and out of my car for good. Story 4. I inherited my grandfather's barbershop on Frenchman Street in New Orleans. Have you ever looked into a mirror and felt like something was off? What if your reflection didn't just show who you are, but who you were, who you might become, or who you were never meant to be? I used to think my grandfather was just eccentric. The kind of man who'd polish antique mirrors with holy water and mutter prayers in Creole under his breath. When he passed, I inherited his barbershop on Frenchman Street, a cramped, wood-paneled relic tucked between a jazz club and a voodoo supply store. I'd never even been to New Orleans before, but something about the place felt familiar, like I'd walked through that door before, like I'd sat in that chair. The shop was untouched after Hurricane Ida, except for the dust and debris. I spent the week cleaning alone, sweeping hair that wasn't mine, that smelled faintly of pomade and tobacco. The mirrors, 3 of them tall and framed in carved mahogany, were spotless. Too spotless. I'd catch glimpses of movement that didn't match mine. A man in suspenders. A child with a bowl cut. Customers I'd never seen sitting in the chair, getting haircuts like it was 1956. I blinked. They were gone. I told myself it was stress, lack of sleep, maybe mold exposure. But the reflections kept changing. One night, I saw a man with a pompadour and a cigarette tucked behind his ear. He winked at me through the glass. Another time, a woman in a beehive hairdo mouthed something I couldn't hear. I started filming the mirrors with my phone, hoping to catch something. But the recording showed only me, standing alone. Always alone. Then came the night I saw myself. Not the me I am now, the me I used to be. 7 years old. Bowl cut. Nervous feet dangling off the chair. I recognized the sneakers. I remembered the itch of the cape around my neck. But I'd never been here before. Not as a child. Not ever. And the barber behind me, he looked exactly like me now. Same tired eyes. Same scar on the chin. Same hands steady with the scissors. I stopped sleeping in my apartment. I brought a cot into the shop and stayed there overnight, watching the mirrors. I needed answers. I needed to know if I was losing my mind or if something deeper was happening. Every night, the same customers returned. Same clothes. Same expressions. But they aged backward. Slowly. One man came in with gray hair and left with jet black. A woman's wrinkles faded with each visit. They never looked at me. Only at their reflections. I tried talking to them. I stood behind the chair and whispered, "Who are you?" Nothing. I waved my arms. I knocked on the glass. But in the mirror, I wasn't there. Just the customer. Just the haircut. I started keeping notes. Names embroidered on shirts. Styles that matched old photographs I found in the drawers. One name came up twice, Earl. I found a receipt dated 1963 with that name. Same haircut. Same face. Same chair. I stopped cutting hair. I couldn't trust the chair anymore. Every time I turned my back, the mirrors flickered. I'd hear the snip of scissors, but I wasn't holding them. I locked the shop at night, covered the mirrors with sheets. But they bled light through the fabric. A soft, golden glow. Like candlelight. I tried sleeping with my back to them. But I kept waking up, facing the glass. Last night, I uncovered the center mirror. Just for a second. I needed to see. My reflection was there, but older. Wrinkled. Thinner. Eyes sunken. He raised his hand before I did. He mouthed something. I leaned closer. He whispered, "It's your turn." Then he smiled. Not my smile. Not anymore. I stumbled back, knocking over the stool. The mirror stayed lit. My reflection didn't move. I haven't left the shop since. I eat here. Sleep here. I don't trust the outside anymore. Time feels different inside these walls. I hear footsteps behind me, but no one's there. Sometimes I see clients I never had. They sit in the chair, smiling, waiting. I blink, they're gone. But the mirrors remember. They show me scenes I never lived. A wedding. A funeral. A child calling me dad. Tonight, all 12 mirrors lit up. At once. The reflections weren't mine. They were versions of me, older, younger, broken, joyful. Each one beckoning. I stood in the center, surrounded. The glass shimmered like water. I reached out. My hand passed through. Warmth. Familiarity. I heard my own voice from inside the mirror say, "Come home." I hesitated. Then the lights flickered. The mirrors began to fade. I stood there for hours, I think. Time didn't feel real anymore. The mirrors pulsed gently, like breathing. I saw my mother in one, my childhood dog in another. A version of me laughing, surrounded by people I didn't recognize but somehow loved. I reached out again. The glass rippled. I felt warmth like sunlight on skin. I whispered, "Is this real?" The mirror didn't answer, but my reflection nodded. I stepped forward. Just 1 foot. The shop behind me dimmed. The mirrors grew brighter. I felt myself stretch, not painfully but like unfolding. I didn't look back. I couldn't. The glass welcomed me. I became part of the reflection. Or maybe it became part of me. The barber's chair sat empty. The scissors still. Outside, the sign flickered once, then went dark. The shop remains. But I do not. If anyone's ever seen something like this, please say something. I need to know I'm not the only one. Story 5. The 24-hour barbershop next to Fenway Park in Boston's Kenmore Square. What if the most ordinary part of your routine, a haircut, became the doorway to something you couldn't escape? Something invisible. Something that reshapes you every night. I don't know exactly when it started. One morning, I woke up with the feeling that my hair had been changed. Not shorter, just altered. As if someone had snipped at it while I slept. I thought I was imagining things. But the next morning it happened again. And again. Always the same cut. Always the same style. Like someone was sculpting me bit by bit. At first it was subtle. A strand missing here, a clean edge there. But over time, it became impossible to ignore. I'd wake up with a clean neckline, perfectly trimmed sideburns, and a layered top that looked professionally styled. No hair on the pillow. No sign of anything physical. Just the result. Flawless and unsettling. I started testing it. Took photos before bed. Compared them to the next morning. The cut changed. Always the same pattern. Always the same touch. Like an invisible stylist was visiting me at night. Then one night I dreamed of him. An empty salon. A red chair. And me sitting still while faceless hands worked with surgical precision. I woke up drenched in sweat. But the haircut was there. Just like in the dream. That's when I realized it wasn't just a dream. It was a session. And it kept happening night after night. I tried sleeping at random times. In different places. Even in hotels. But it didn't matter. Every time I slept, I returned to that chair. Same cut. Same silence. I tried shaving my head. I thought maybe, just maybe, if there was no hair left, the scissors would stop. But even as I dragged the razor across my scalp, I felt it, the phantom snipping. Not painful. Just present. Like invisible hands were still shaping something that wasn't there. I looked in the mirror and my reflection was untouched. Still full head of hair. Still in the chair. Still asleep. I went to work wearing a beanie, hoping to ignore it. But every reflective surface betrayed me. The microwave door. The chrome elevator panel. Even the puddles on the sidewalk. All of them showed the same scene. Me in that chair getting the same haircut again and again. I started feeling it during meetings. A tug behind my ear. A cold touch on my neck. I'd flinch, but no one noticed. No one ever noticed. I stopped sleeping. Every time I closed my eyes, I'd wake up in the chair. The same cape around my neck. The same scissors dancing beside my ears. I tried pills, meditation, even staying awake for 3 days straight. But exhaustion always won. And when it did, I'd return to that room, not in dreams but in something deeper. Something that felt like it was rewriting me. One night I woke up screaming. My pillow was covered in hair. Not shaved stubble, full strands, long and dark like the ones I used to have. But my head was still bald. I checked the mirror. And there I was again, asleep in the chair, hair growing back in real time only to be snipped away. Over and over. I wasn't just haunted. I was being rebuilt. I stopped going outside. I covered every mirror. I taped over my phone's front camera. But it didn't matter. The haircut continued. I'd feel it while brushing my teeth, while eating, while staring at the ceiling. The scissors never stopped. And the worst part? I started seeing others. On the train. In cafes. In line at the pharmacy. All of them, asleep in chairs reflected in glass, getting the same cut. Just like me. Now I sit still. I don't fight it anymore. My hair grows back each night only to be taken again. I don't know who's cutting it. I don't know why. But I understand now, it's not about the haircut. It's about control. About being reshaped quietly, endlessly, until you forget what you looked like before. Until you forget you ever had a choice.